Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia. This is not really a report, not an update, but this one is more of a hypothetical thing. Regarding why the Russians decided to retreat over this region. What is exactly their the battle plan? Is what they say true? The idea that they are actually just here to draw away Ukrainian forces from the Eastern Front, and why do they retreat now, and how do they make sense of all these things? So let's go back to let me rename this first. Give me a second. This is actually for the third, in case I forget. So anyway, let's go back to day one. So on day one, everyone was surprised that the Russians have entered from 5 different places. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we already know that they have entered into the Donbass area, and because that is what their plan is. They recognize the Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic, and they wanted to help them liberate their land. So that is pretty obvious. And of course, the Ukrainians are heavily entrenched this line to make sure that this does not happen. And but the Russians immediately rushed for Kiev. So everybody always thought that all thought that the Russians want to have a quick victory, and I believe that's also true, because if the defenses is poor at Kiev, and the will to fight is low or non-existent, then of course the Russians will immediately take over Kiev, much like how they have taken over Crimea 8 years ago. So there is of course a high possibility. Of course, they will want to take over Kharkiv, and they want to take over Kherson and Mykolaiv. Of course, if they no one defends, then of course they're gonna take it for free, right? And and then we have this. So they after that they captured, by 1 week they have already established the front that we more or less know, which is very close to what we have today. So the idea was, according to the Russians, on hindsight, is that they wanted to hold the Ukrainian forces in this area. So of course, because of their 5 fronts, basically Ukrainian forces have to split across 5 or 6 different locations, or 7, or even 7 different locations. You have 1, 2, even 3. Here is 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8 and 9. There's so many things that happened all over the place. And this is so if we want to believe the Russians' words, then the plan is actually uh, to split them up and hold them up, so that this part that they can actually concentrate to fight. However, I have been thinking about this for like a few days already, and I feel that the main reason why they are doing this is actually for Mariupol. I think this is actually the key to why they can retreat from Kiev now and not earlier or not later. Because if they do not hold up the forces, of course the Ukrainians are going to rush in. But where would they actually reinforce? They're going to reinforce Mariupol first, because this is a heavily entrenched line. They are likely to come and rescue Mariupol and defeat this forces that is on the east of Mariupol. And of course, you're going to have, let's say if this front does not exist, all the forces around here is going to go south and fight in Mykolaiv, or take Kherson. They might even incur into Crimea, and this will jeopardize the entire operation in the south. But because of this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different front lines, in a sense, the the Ukrainian command is unlikely to be able to uh, ignore the possible capturing of all these major cities on the north, and then so they are unable to reinforce the forces that is in the south, which is why we saw the Russians just run riots. They are traveling all over the place in the south. There's not enough Ukrainian forces in the south, and this is also possible because if you look at before the war situation, the danger comes around here. This is where the Russian forces have been gathering, and a bit in Crimea, and this is the main border that they were preparing for. And then, of course, a lot of them is actually here because this is where they expect the fighting, most of the fighting, or exclusively going to be fought here. But they are wary of Belarus. They are wary of Russians invading from the north. From the south, Crimea, there's limited forces here. There's not a lot to run about. Not a lot of space, a lot of choke points. So a lot of the forces is here. And by holding up all these forces, the Russian forces from this area is able to travel and maneuver with a lot more flexibility, and that's exactly what we saw. They punch through to Melitopol, and then they actually take over Tokmak, and then they just spread across, totally undefended, this area. So this could be the reason. You see, the forces here is to protect the south, and particularly Mariupol, because this is actually a massive stronghold here, and this is where the so-called the denazification, one of the key operations is here, because the Azov battalion, which is the so-called neo-Nazis, are actually headquartered here. So this is one of the big operations that they are unwilling to allow them to just melt away into the rest of the army. And of course, the fighting here ensures that none of these forces is able to retreat. They will have to hold their positions. And of course, eventually we also realized that in the Luhansk region, the defenses collapsed. And by day 15, the entire northern side of Luhansk has been taken over by the Luhansk defense, the Luhansk People's Republic. So this is something that I have been thinking so long. That's why I realized that the retreat could be related to Mariupol, because when we talk about the timing, the only thing that coincides with this retreat is actually basically the capture of Mariupol. So, but this is day 25, and today, in this past few days, Mariupol is technically as good as captured. Only pockets of I'm not sure how many troops, maybe 1,000 troops left. The Ukrainian forces that's left with Mariupol, and most of Mariupol has been captured. Most of the civilians has been evacuated. The city is technically gone, and there is literally no reasons for the Ukrainians to actually risk any more forces to actually punch through and try to liberate Mariupol at this moment. The forces is basically mostly left for dead. Even the helicopter evacuations, 5 helicopters can't really do much. If you're talking about at least 1,000 soldiers still fighting inside, so the evacuation could be, according to some people, they say is to evacuate the foreign advisors, and I think that is a high possibility. There's a rumor that 2 French officers died in the evacuation when the helicopter got shot down. I cannot verify this information. So of course, to evacuate the high-ranking officers is also possible. So otherwise, Mariupol is a gone case situation where there is as good as fallen. And as this chapter coming to a close, the Russians no longer need to hold this position. So if under the assumption that the forces fighting in this front is only purely to hold up Ukrainian forces and not to conquer the cities, then of course, then one day they will have to retreat. So the question is a matter of when, right? So they chose these past few days to retreat, and that's what they did. My prediction was much later. I thought that they will actually hold this position much longer so that they have more time to encircle the forces around here. But somehow, with the basically near fall of Mariupol, they decided to just leave. And this will allow the Ukrainians the ability to capture all this territory, but not without any cost, because to capture back all these towns means they have to burn troops and fuel to actually travel to all these places, and then they have to sacrifice more food and resources to feed all this population now. So, and then today, I think yesterday or today, the rain has fallen, and this, I think, is the beginning of the rainy season and basically the muddy season as well. So with the start of the Russian muddy season, which means that the roads, all the dirt roads, will be incredibly difficult to actually move through, especially for tanks. And this apply to all the farmlands, and of course this is come right after the snow, the winter season, so there's actually not much plants to actually hold up the soil. So the soil are all very loose. With the rain, it's going to be all mud. So the Russians moving to Sumy area to protect this flank, does make some sense. This will shorten their supply line rather than holding positions here and then the supply line stretching, at least to the north will be like 150 or 60 kilometers. If you're going from this way, it will be like 300 kilometers. This is ridiculously long supply lines, which by retreating, they no longer need to take care of the supply line and to hold up a position that they will not take the city for. And basically, this is maybe not so profitable in the sense of the how the war is supposed to go. So militarily, this is too expensive for them now, and also we have to take into consideration of the mobilization of the Ukrainian forces. Easily, my gauge is there's at least 1 million Ukrainian soldiers now, and more to come. So we looking at max 200,000 Russian forces, with all these allies and LPR, DPR forces. Around 200,000 is not going to is going to have a hard fight against a million soldiers. So especially this area where they are not exactly numerous. I see some estimates around 50,000 soldiers, 50,000 troops. So retreating away from this region, free up all these resources and all this trouble to reinforce and resupply this area. This is actually very far away. 300 kilometers is like going from Kherson all the way to this front here, to all the way to Hryvnia. This is super far to do resupply. So by focusing here, they are just next to Kursk. This makes reinforcement a lot easier. And then and I believe that there should be and of course we also see that the incursion at the Kyiv area had also dissipated, and then all of them is going to travel. I believe they are all going to gather all around Kherson and hold this position, as well as Kakhovka, because this is the two bridges on the Dnieper River. So they are likely to going to hold these two positions, and it is going to be nearly impossible for them to just cross this major water barrier here, and they have to take these two positions. And the only other way to get to this lower mass of land, it will be through Zaporizhia, but the Ukrainians in their very defensive minded on desperation, they actually blew out all the bridges. on the way to Zaporizhia, which means that they're gonna have trouble traveling down to the south of Zaporizhia to actually uh, do this counter offensive. So by freeing up all these forces, they hold this position. They can actually reinforce with other forces to keep to just block up all these choke points. There's only one, two, and then this line, and then and that's it. These are the major front lines now, and these actually do make tactical and strategic sense. Um, so that's why a lot of people is like, they are calling this a major defeat, or the Russians are fleeing and retreating, and this called then the Western media is naming this as the Russians' failure to capture Kiev, and then now they are like changing tack, using excuses to say, oh, they're not gonna they have never meant to invade these places. Now they're gonna redeploy. I mean, that is possible. I'm not saying that's not possible, but the timing with Mariupol and the muddy season coming, it is not ideal to hold so much territory in muddy territory. Similarly, it's not very defendable, or not very good to be in this kind of farmland area um in the middle of a muddy season. By holding this kind of positions, they're going to avoid the mud. They have very good roads here to reinforce and resupply directly from Crimea. These are all major roads, and the Ukrainians themselves is going to have the problem to deal with, because if the Russians have to deal with muddy roads, the Ukrainians will have to deal with the muddy road as well. So resupplying and reinforcing and trying to build up an offensive in this area is going to be hard, especially if you are talking about taking a city or taking over a bridge. So that's not easy. So so there's another issue that you might not have noticed unless you are watching my videos on a daily basis, is that I have covered how life have gone back to normal in Melitopol, and also I think in Kherson, I think, and Tokmak as well. And in particular, Tokmak, Melitopol, and the of course the DPR LPR areas, the Russians have already brought in their banks and exchanged the Ukrainian currency that the civilians use with Russian currency. So in order to buy food and everything, they are now using Russian rubles instead of the Ukrainian hryvnias, and resupplies and the supplying of for all the shops, all their supplies and food and stuff is all coming from Crimea area. So this is drastically different from how they deal with the civilians in the north. In the north, the Russians had not done the same thing where they bring in their bank trucks to fill up the ATM with Russian money. They have not have the bank trucks to with the personnel to change the money for them, exchange the money from the hryvnia to rubles. This did not happen in the north, but however, this happened in the south, in Melitopol and in Tokmak, particularly, which I know of. I'm not sure if they done that in Kherson. From my memory, it doesn't seem like they did in Kherson. I know Melitopol and Tokmak did. I don't remember they did it in Kherson. However, they of course did bring humanitarian aid to Kherson, similar to what they have done for the northern villages and towns. So this is of something of concern, which means that there is a possibility where the Russians may give up Kherson city. However, they will actually take everything below the Dnieper River. The Dnieper River, they might likely to take over everything in the south. And given the exchange of money at Melitopol and Tokmak, which means that the Russians might seems to be interested to actually take over and annex this entire piece of land. From my point of view, this looks like something that they are actually looking to do, which is why we can see that they are quite interested to keep Anahoda, and because this will provide the power to power the electricity around this entire region. Whether will they take Dnipro, Pavlograd, Zaporizhia, all these things is not so clear. It's not so clear to me. But for me is I always look at the actions, not look at the rhetorics. We don't look at what they say. It's important to look at what they do. And what they do in the south here, especially the exchange of money, the currency, is a very significant thing, as opposed to the lack of them doing this in the north. Of course, they do still provide humanitarian aid to actually make the people happy there. But of course, the people here are very pro-Ukrainians, so pro-Ukraine. So they're not keeping this area does also make sense. So this is just some of my observation, and I mean, this does explains why the retreat do make sense. And if you think this is a Russian defeat, I mean, you can enjoy your victory. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm just want to just discuss and share with you why I think this could why this retreat actually do make sense as to the overall operation. So what is it next? You may ask. I believe this entire area is going to be gone, and then this entire area is to be gone, and then the forces will only keep around Sumy. This is what I think might happen. So, and this is actually already happening. And so what's next for the Russians? The muddy season and the rainy muddy season is actually here. That means that fighting in the open in the country roads is going to be very difficult. However, they are likely to continue to push. The Luhansk and Donetsk is going to continue to fight here. For the Luhansk front, it's mostly urban combat, which is the problem. They have Borisky they need to take, and then this, which is a rather big town here, and then they need to take the major city of Severodonetsk. They need to capture the even bigger city of Lysychansk, and then they have to take this area of where they pump oil. But my understanding is I think one of the oil pumps are destroyed, I think around here, and they have to capture all these things, and of course clear up Popasna, and then before they can more or less capture the whole of Luhansk. So it's all urban warfare. It's more complicated for Donetsk because they only have 50% of the territory, or just 55%. They need to clear up Mariupol, which is probably going to be done probably in another week, which my original prediction that he need to take at least 2 weeks to clear the city is coming true, because it's only been 1 week since I made that assessment, and of course the Chechens are very excited to say you're just going to take 1 week, and of course some of you guys, the viewers, are also saying that it's just going to take a few more days. It did not happen. A few more days have already passed, and I believe it's going to take 1 more week before they will totally announce the capture of the city. And the Donetsk forces is definitely going to continue to fight against all these Ukrainian positions, and they're going to bet a lot on the dwindling supplies of fuel and ammunition, and of course the extremely stretched supply line of the Ukrainians. So hopefully with that they are able to capture all these grounds. There's a major fight through Izium moving southwards. A lot of them saying that they are moving towards Sloviansk, and that to me don't make a lot of sense, because I would, if I'm the commander, I'll go for Bavinkov, and then I will go for Alexandrivka, and then do this major encirclement. But if let's say we take into consideration the muddy situation, the mud that is going to come, then we will be able to have some context to maybe it's better to stick to the major roads, perhaps. So I can't, can we see this road? I can't even see, it's not in detail enough. I'm not sure what kind of road is this, but fighting is going to be end up in the fields. So so not sure exactly, the Russians will actually go for Slovians as per many people say, or will they go for Bavinkov, which indicators from the previous excursions of their forces seems to indicate that they will do. And also whether they will actually push up from Hryvnia is hard to say. But in terms of this front, I believe the Russians go to keep just south of the Dnieper River. They are not going to fight around this wide open region here, and they're going to let the Ukrainians stretch their supply lines just to keep up an offense around here. This is what I believe will happen. So in terms of this front, once they clear it up, then they will have to go through all the mud, and hopefully there are some good roads for them, and then they will try to reinforce the Kharkiv front, maybe even in the Sumy front here. And indications says that they want to reinforce the eastern front now, after previously saying that they're going to leave them for dead, or not they say, but people assess that they're going to leave them for dead, so they're likely going to reinforce. But I have a feeling that the Russians actually wanted the Ukrainians to reinforce the eastern front, because if the more troops they have here, and if they really manage to do this major pincer movement, then more troops will be destroyed in one fell swoop. So we're not sure if that is that big brain plan or 4D chess kind of situation, or is it going to be just a very conventional war that they simply just cannot handle this anymore, and then they're just going to keep it here. Then here they'll just fight conventionally in a wide front, just pushing forward. So this is just my assessment. And for those that are excited about Transnistria, no, I don't think the Transnistrian Republic is going to go to war. Their current strength, their military strength is around 6,000. And there's also another 1,000 Russian peacekeepers over there. 7,000 troops against a Ukraine that have mobilized almost all their males into military soldiers and formations. I think Ukraine would just sweep through the whole of Moldova and conquer this entire land if they chose to. So I don't think that's the case. Ukraine is a huge country. They have a huge population and a huge army, and which is why they are able to hold the Russians for so long. So do not look down on the Ukrainians. However, the initiative is not exactly in Ukrainians' favor. The initiative is still in the Russian side. When they choose to retreat, they just retreat. The Ukrainians can't really do anything about it. So and then once they gather around here, every single point is heavily fortified and heavily armed. There isn't any kind of a loophole for the Ukrainians to actually do, unless the Ukrainians decided to capture all this ground and punch into Russia and actually go for Moscow. That is actually a plausible strategy to go for. I mean, it's not exactly that far. It's only 400 kilometers. I mean, the supply line from here to here is already 300 kilometers. So this is actually a doable thing, but are you going to do it in the middle of a muddy season then, or not? Or you have to follow this major road, then of course you're going to be open target. So so this is just some hypothesis. This war is very unfavorable to the Ukrainians. I have been thinking about this for the whole month already. I have been thinking on the perspective for the Ukrainians. How are they going to strategize and beat the Russians. And I haven't been able to think of a solution because of the entire blockade of everywhere, including the Kyiv region and Chernihiv region as well as this area. There's actually no options. But with the Russian withdrawal from this region, the Russian border is not accessible again. And if the Ukrainians really want a way out, the victory is not going to be here. They can't beat the Russian forces here. They have to punch into Moscow, towards Moscow, and see how far they can go. Take Bryansk, perhaps, then go north to Kaluga, and then go north, threaten Moscow, and perhaps they have a fighting chance to actually get the Russians to the table, to the negotiation table, to actually talk it out. That's how I feel. This is probably the only I think way to threaten the Russians and force a withdrawal from some of this area. But of course, we have no idea how. I at least myself, I have no idea how much troops is there in this region. I know there is a lot around here because it's bordering NATO. I'm not sure how much Russian troops is around this region to actually protect this region. But to attack directly into Russia is a way to kind of create some panic in the Russian military. Whether they will succeed, of course, that's another story altogether. But of course, that also deprived the major fronts of precious Ukrainian military and reinforcements that could have come to here, but instead went for an offensive. So it's a decision for the Ukrainian military to make. But this is just my hypothesis. I think for me, I will try to do that since the Ukrainians have seemed to gone YOLO already. So if we go on YOLO, you might as well just go for Moscow. And a quick drive over here, and then you do multiple grad strikes into the middle of Moscow. I think, yeah, that will definitely guarantee the end of Ukraine as a country altogether. But this is just my perspective. This is not a report, so none of the things that I say is real. All these are just my perception of what it is. So I think it's just an interesting scenario to ponder about, and of course to clarify why this retreat makes sense. This elephant horse here, it's just not worth the Russians to hold. Neither is this area around Kyiv. So they do not have enough troops to capture Kyiv, nor they ever seem to have intended to capture Kyiv other than the first few days of the war. So the retreat just makes a lot of sense in a strategic sense, especially if you're talking about avoiding the rainy season, the muddy season, and try to fight better. Yeah, so enough of my rambling. If you find this interesting, please press the like button. And this is just something out of the ordinary. I just, I have seen so many comments, and I find it really hard to just reply one by one sometimes about all this retreat and stuff. So I decided to just make a video about this. And of course, you can feel free to disagree, and you can feel free to feel that no, it's because of the Ukrainian become so powerful now. They are now pushing back and hitting the Russians so hard that they are now fleeing for their life. I mean, yeah, that is valid as well if you want to think that way, because it is true, I believe, that the accumulation of forces around Kyiv has become so much that the Russians feels that maybe it's no longer wise to keep their forces around here, and they have to change this strategy and maybe move away before they get encircled or get wiped out. So they have all just run away and move to Sumy area. So that's possible, and I think that's also makes sense. But did they really strike at the Russians until they retreat? I don't think so. They make a preemptive retreat, just like they have made a preemptive offensive against Ukraine. They see what's coming for them, and they decided to just retreat. So that seems more likely. In terms of the tide of war, is still not in Ukraine's favor, because every single day targets all around Ukraine is getting struck by missiles. It's basically like playing cheat code. If you're playing in the war game, imagine every turn you have to lose one infrastructure, or two, or five, while your opponent, the Russians, do not lose any infrastructure except for the ammo depot at Belgorod, as well as the oil depot, and as well as the airstrike on I think Rostov. There's an air base got struck in the first week by missiles. So these are the only few attempts by Ukraine to actually hit something within Russia. And I think this is insufficient strategically to actually help Ukraine to turn the tide of war. One oil depot versus 5 oil depot, but 5 oil depot on a daily basis. I mean, it's really hard for the Ukrainians to actually to actually push in this sense. The tide is not with Ukraine. However, the numbers, in terms of the number of soldiers, is definitely on Ukraine's side at the moment. The mobilization, of course, going to have to help them, booster their numbers all over the place. But the lacking of fuel is going to be a big problem. Ammunition, do they have enough assault rifle? I'm not sure. Ammunition situation, I also not so sure. Of course, advanced weaponry continues to flow through from Europe and USA through Poland into Lviv and Lutsk, and especially Lviv. So the transportation from the west to the east and to central and to the north to the south is going to be rather challenging. They have been trying to use trains and also, of course, convoys. Trains might be more efficient, but train stations are easy targets. And in terms of truck situation, means you're going to use more fuel. The fuel situation around the world is very bad now. The fuel price is at an all-time high, and Ukraine don't really have much of an economy left now. It's only a small fraction of what it used to be. So money is a problem for Ukraine as well now. So to buy the fuel is rather challenging. They are depending a lot on charity from the West. And whether the West can continue to feed Ukraine with ammunition, weapons, and fuel is another story altogether. Because to put into perspective, I mean, this is Russia. This is Russia, and their military is built to fight against NATO. So their military is not built to fight just one country. It's to fight against the whole of NATO. They might not be able to win in a conventional war, but that's the size of military that the Russians have, and dealing with one Ukraine, definitely they have more than enough. But they are fighting with a hand behind their back now. They are only committing limited number of troops. They are not going to use conscripts. They're only going to use regular forces, as well as the militias from Luhansk and Donetsk, as well as some of the friendly republics that they have recognized. So it's still fighting behind with one hand behind their back. So kind of evens the odd. Talking about how long the war will go, I mean, Syria is a much smaller country, and that took years, and ISIS took even longer, right? I think ISIS was around the same time. The ISIS was like running all over the place around here, and this region is not even this. It's only like maybe the eastern side of Ukraine. Ukraine is a much bigger country, so let's see how this go. There's just some opinions. This really an opinion video, so it's a lot of rambling. Hopefully you can find my explanations and opinion and assessments useful. If you think that I'm talking a bunch of rubbish, it's a bunch of rubbish, then that sorry I've wasted your time. And so that's that. I'm gonna leave you to that. Leave you to this thing, and then I'm gonna stop the recording, and I'll see you in the next update.